Good evening, and welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families.
And I'm Merrill Hutchinson, President of Rock Solid Families. And we are excited to have you join us for the next 30 minutes as we talk about relationships. A huge shout out to our sponsors. Thank you to Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. We are so thankful for these businesses who have made this show possible. So whether you are listening live or online, Rock Solid Radio, helping to strengthen our community, one family at a time on your hometown radio, Eagle Country 99.3.
Good evening. Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I am Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families. Hey, thanks for joining us this evening, hon. We have a great topic tonight, and we can't wait to get started.
Oh, yeah. This one is I love this topic. I think I like this topic because sometimes it's made me pull my hair out. But I like it because there's really great value in the conversation. And, of course, that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about value.
Well, and self-esteem. You know, you hear a lot of people talk about self-esteem. And actually, we're really going to kind of debunk some myths about self-esteem. And we're really going to use a different term that we think is more healthier. And it is really a better version of what we should be really reaching for, especially with our kids. And that is self-worth. So if you have ever struggled with self-worth or self-esteem, or your kids struggle with that, stay tuned. This show is for you. But before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors for making Rock Solid Radio happen. Thank you to Maxwell Construction and Greendale Cinema, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. We are so thankful for them and their partnership and just really coming alongside us and helping strengthen our community, one family at a time, hon.
Yeah. Well, hey, we just want to put a plug in for a movie that we have seen here in the last couple of weeks. Have you all out there, any of you guys seen the movie Unplanned?
Yeah.
What a powerful movie.
Wow. It was a tough one. Tough one to watch.
Both you and I work at the pregnancy care centers as volunteers.
Yeah.
And so being involved in that a little bit and seeing the work of what we're trying to do, you know, when I don't think I gave a whole lot of thought when I was young, when I was in my 20s, about abortion. I mean, I think in my gut, I was like, oh, you know, this is wrong, you know, but I don't think I really understood because I probably, whether it was a culture or whatever, minimized the value of life.
Yeah.
And, you know, and obviously when we start to have kids and we see the value of that, we start to grow and mature. And Abby Johnson's story is just about that.
Yeah. Well, she was the director of a Planned Parenthood clinic in Texas for 8 years. And she will admit that she oversaw over 22,000 abortions, which, hon, after we saw the movie, I literally could not sleep thinking about those 22,000 lives in that one clinic in the corner of Texas.
Yeah.
You know, and so we're talking about that you have value tonight. We're talking about that every human life has value.
Yeah.
This isn't going to be an abortion show necessarily, but you know, I couldn't help before we got into our topic of self-worth talk about the fact that every life has value.
Yeah. And I think the challenge though, hon, that we get into is we don't always understand because we allow the world to determine what has value. You know, whether you were good at a certain sport or whether you were good at school or whether you know, and we allowed outside forces to define our value. And so we really want to have some conversation tonight about what is this whole self-esteem thing, and where does it root itself, where does it set on, and how we need a really good examination of that, because there's a problem. There's a real problem, and we're going to talk a little bit about that.
So if you're pregnant out there and you're listening to this, just remember your unborn baby has value. If you've had an abortion, this is where it really gets sticky, hon. There's a lot of people out there that are carrying around this burden, this shame, this guilt of this secret, this dirty little secret that they had. And so they feel like they're unworthy, that they're dirty. And I'm here to tell you that God is a God, a redeemer, that you still have value to God. Abby Johnson's story in the movie Unplanned we're talking about, she had abortions. And she not only was the director of this clinic, but she personally had gone through that horrific situation. And so God can take your pain and your shame and bring beauty. Hun, did you know, oh my goodness, I heard an interview with her. Did you know the backstory of that after she had agreed to do this movie, that her mom told her for the very first time that her mom had been at an abortion clinic to abort her and changed her mind? Like, that gave me chills thinking about that Abby Johnson would not be here today. The story would not even be told, but that Lord had a different plan for her life and the life of the kids to come.
Yeah. And never to question how God works, right?
Wow.
And works in amazing ways.
Yeah.
So again, we're certainly going to plug that movie. One thing that just came to my mind in that movie, and I think we have to be very careful about it. They, in the movie, showed the folks from the Coalition of Life who were praying outside of the fence and that sort of thing. And then there were other
extremists
that maybe they were under the Christian umbrella, maybe they weren't, I'm not sure, that they were very challenging and difficult to deal with, and they were nasty, to be frank. And listen, I get that. I mean, when you see somebody doing something bad, especially aborting a baby, you just want to get crazy, right? But the idea that when Abby finally kind of had her awakening, she went right to the people who continued in her mind to oppose her, and she just asked for the simple acceptance, and they took her in. And that's what Christ does to us, right? When we fall apart, I mean, he says, no, don't be afraid or embarrassed. Come on in here. Come in here. And we need to do that. If we're constantly in judgment and being harsh, we're just chasing people away. So
she had said that actually even inflamed her more when she saw how the Grim Reaper was outside their door and yelling obscenities to these girls walking in the door. And that is not the way to win people to Christ. Hun, I love Isaiah 61. And I'm just going to simplify what it talks about, but verses 1 through 3 said that God wants to bring good news to the poor. He wants to comfort the brokenhearted. He wants to set prisoners free. He wants to trade your ashes for a crown of beauty. He wants to give you blessing instead of mourning. He wants to give you praise instead of despair. The Lord has done all this. And Abby Johnson's story is a perfect example of all this, So if it's not in theaters anymore, rent it. Ironically, hun, it has an R rating for the abortion references, but yet a girl under the age 18 can't see it without a parent, but yet a 15-year-old can go get an abortion without any kind of parental consent. Is there an irony there, or it's just sad? So
it's kind of where we are. Hey, well, let's move in a little bit more to our topic, okay? So we're talking about
versus self-esteem.
Self-esteem versus self-worth, okay? And so I want to back up a little bit in terms of when I worked as a school counselor. Back in the 90s, I mean...
That's showing your age.
I know. But back in there, I mean, the big topic was building kids' self-esteem.
Don't say no.
Never say no. We have to build our kids' self-esteem. Kids are sad and depressed and struggling today because they don't feel good about themselves. And so... initially, let's be honest, that just makes sense. That sounds good. We need to build them up.
Sure.
And so that's what we attempted to do. And here's how we did it. Let's praise the daylights out of them. Give them compliments, encourage. Let's give trophies.
Everybody a trophy, yes.
Let's give these self-indulgent parties. I don't want to be mean here, but, I see some of the parties.
Wow.
The birthday party or whatever.
They got ponies and inflatables.
Because you're so special, and we just go so crazy overboard to show them that they're special. and thinking that's going to build their self-esteem.
Yeah.
And again, don't just bear with us here. Bear with us, because if you just got done planning the party for your 5-year-old, we don't want you to turn us off. Hang in there,
ponies,
okay?
Yeah.
But making kids feel good does not come externally. All right, and we're going to talk about that.
What do you mean not coming? You mean doesn't come from external factors?
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
from us complimenting.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that's not a good thing to do, to compliment. Yes, we do need to do that. But when we start to see exactly what is missing with that, then we see where it grows empty.
Yeah, when we're exaggerating, when we're fabricating things, just to make them feel good, when it's not the truth.
Yeah, it's not the truth. And again, I mean, this could go into a totally different show. This is that entitlement that you hear everybody complaining, all the millennials are so entitled and all. No, they're only doing what we have conditioned them
Mom
and taught
Dad.
them to do. We'll give you something, and that will make you feel good. So we have to just keep giving.
It's never enough.
Yeah, and so just like all things, and especially if you're a man, if a little bit of fertilizer works, put a lot on there and watch what your yard does. And of course, it
Honey,
burns
it's not
your
working
yard
in
out.
our yard right now.
I know. That's why I thought of that. So sometimes just the right amount. Not too much, not too little, just the right amount. And we have gone overboard on this building of self-esteem through the wrong practice.
Yeah. We're actually turning our homes into child-centered homes where, whatever makes Johnny happy. We don't want to make Susie mad. We don't want to disappoint them. We don't want to let them down. And so we're inflating it to be unrealistic.
Yeah.
And it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
You're doing the dance and pony show to make your kids happy, and you're exhausted as a parent.
Yeah.
Something's wrong with this picture.
I clearly remember when the time came, and it's probably still very much a topic, when our teachers had to start counting the number of positives that they gave a kid relative to the number of negatives. And depending on whose research you read, it's either like 5 to 1. You have to give 5 or 5 positives to counterbalance 1 negative. Some researchers say you have to give 7. And so our teachers had to. There's actually entire workshops where teachers have tally boards and systems where they're counting through the course of a day how many positives they give relative to negatives. And again, we are not saying we don't say and do positive things, but we've gotten that all out of whack.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. And we mentioned this last week on our show about hope. And if you didn't listen to last week's show, I really encourage you to do that. But, there's a reason why the number of statistics of suicidal ideation, suicidal attempts has doubled since 2007. It's because when we put our value in things and those things are gone, then life is not worth it.
Yeah. Well, this is, like we said, if we lose something, we lose hope. If I am basing my value off of all the compliments I'm going to get, we have
Trophies,
a child. Yeah. We have a child who's constantly seeking every bit of praise that they can get from us. And the time that we either don't see it or forget the praise or whatever, he's just crushed. And one of the things that you and I are working on as a parent is to say, listen, your good or bad is not based off of whether mommy and daddy say you're awesome. Yeah, we just can't. And so we are challenged to do that. Yeah. Here's a crazy thing. I remember in the schools where they said you needed to stop grading papers in red ink.
Oh, yeah.
Because when kids see red ink,
brings on anxiety. Yeah.
And that's just crazy. And that's where you start to now see, today's generation is so thin-skinned and everything. And again, I do remember some of the papers that I had that were graded where it was not just red, but it was like, oh my
honey,
gosh.
You were a great student. I can't imagine.
Yes, yeah. You're talking to some other
As a
person
teacher,
right
though,
now.
I remember giving Jolly Ranchers out for questions. Like they would answer a question, I'd throw a Jolly Rancher out. Well, I soon realized that they weren't going to answer a question until I got the Jolly Ranchers out. I finally had to throw those Jolly Ranchers away because I'm like, I'm just kind of feeding into it. It has to be an extrinsic motivation to get them to do anything. That doesn't bring value to their answer,
Right. And, again, I've heard raising kids is like training up a puppy. And because when we train up a puppy, there is all the extrinsic reward, right? And there is value to some of that when we're even raising kids. But if you're taking away the whole idea, the dog doesn't necessarily, we don't know if the dog can create happiness from within himself. But we do know that people can create happiness from within themselves.
A soul.
Or, yes, your soul and your connection to something greater. And so we need to be careful with the balance is what we're really talking about. So, so let's get in and talk about a little bit of, well, as parents and as people in our own life, even as adults, what are some different things that we need to learn about self-esteem? And how does a child actually build up self-esteem?
Yeah, many experts, not everybody agrees on this, but many experts will say that self-esteem is a myth. It's a dangerous myth because it has a relative value that shifts and changes depending on your feelings or your circumstances or your health. And so self-esteem is generated on how you feel. And so falsely building that up can do nothing but come down and explode. So you and I both have been really studying from Dr. Christina Hibbert. She's a psychologist, she's an author, a speaker, and she describes, this pyramid of self-worth. And I really would encourage anybody out there who has a child that you're trying to work on with this, or you yourself struggle with your self-worth, self-esteem, your value, to really kind of evaluate this pyramid of self-worth. You can even look it up. But step one, she says the foundation is to really be self-aware, to let yourself see who you are, the good, the bad, and the ugly, to honestly assess. There's so extremes of this, of, I don't do anything wrong to I don't do anything good, that we honestly realize our weaknesses, to acknowledge our weaknesses as being places where we can grow, to not puff yourself up too much, but to acknowledge your strengths, to be aware of who you are. She says that's step one. Step two in that pyramid, after you've identified your strengths and weaknesses, is to accept them, to accept the good, the bad, and the ugly, to just meet you where you are, to acknowledge that, I've got these challenges in my life that I'm not great at. I've got these strengths that God has given me. It's a lifelong process, you never just arrive. We continue to grow in our self-awareness and our self-acceptance, and then there's this part, that she talks about of self-love. And that is to care for yourself, your mind, body, and spirit, to not beat yourself up, to not hate yourself, to not reject people's love, to allow people in your life, to care for you, to love you. That's all part of that self-love part that is so important. Because if you don't love yourself, how are you going to love other people? Yeah,
and that's the whole. We only love ourselves if other people are showing love for us, and that's very conditional love for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely,
very conditional. I think about and I'm going back to kids for a second here. What is self-worth versus the self-esteem, and the idea that your self-esteem is attached to your self-worth. So I remember I worked with some folks that at the time that we were just coming into this whole self-esteem thing, and they just started inflating the heck out of praises. And in fact, we even had some problems with their grades, kids' grades. Like everybody was making very great grades, and it was like we had a lot of redos where kids kept coming up with these great grades. And I remember coming into a meeting going, I just don't feel right about this. We're making them feel good right now, but what happens when they go to next year's teacher? When all of a sudden either next year's teacher is going to be the total bad guy because the kid's back to getting some regular normal grades, or that next year teacher is going to have to inflate. And so I kind of feel like it's like our economy. Our money, we can go to the printing press and say, just print more money. But since our money is not attached to something of value like gold or real estate or stocks or bonds or something, if it's not attached to something that has value, it's just paper. It just means nothing. And that's really where these trophies, all of these compliments, all of these banners, all these different things, if they're not attached to something, they don't mean anything. And so it's like inflation.
we were talking about fake compliments and stuff, and our family loves to watch American Idol, and early on in the auditions, you'd have people go in there to these judges, and they think they're a great singer, and people told them they're a great singer, and you're listening going, holy cow, that is not good, and the judges are like, who told you had talent? And they're like, well, my mom thinks I'm a great singer, and you're like, no one was honest with them, like, you're not. But that doesn't make you any less of a value of person, It means you're not good a singer. I am not the greatest singer either. So, but that doesn't mean I don't have value.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, so now this goes to another step. So,
oh, gosh.
Well, because we have self-esteem, which is that how we feel about ourselves, and we attach it to the idea that if a lot of people tell me I'm good at something, I can feel good about ourselves. And now we've transferred to, no, what are we of value? And so the question has to be, how do we measure our value?
Yeah.
And typically we measure our value of what are we worth to other people? What are we worth to other things outside of ourselves? And most importantly, what are we worth to God? And so for you and I, hon, this is such a big part of what gives us value, because there are some days where I may not be worth a lot to a lot of other people. I may not feel very good about myself, but the ultimate creator, the one who created us, this is so cool. So how do I know I am of value to God? Right?
Yeah.
How do I know? And this comes from 1 Corinthians. And this is a slightly long passage, so I'll kind of pick and choose a little bit through here. But 1 Corinthians 12 through 27. So this is where we go, one body with many parts. One body with many parts. And so it's just as a body through one has many parts, but all its many parts form one body. So it is with Christ, for we are all baptized by one Spirit so as to form one body, whether Jew or Gentile, slave or free, and we were all given to one Spirit to drink. Even so, the body is not made up of one part, but many. And so this is that the body is made up of many parts. And the ear doesn't do the job of the eye, and the eye not the job. And so here's where we bring this back to us. If we think that every body part should be of the same function.
Right.
All right.
I don't do what you do. So
I don't do what you do, so I'm not as good.
Yeah.
That's where we've gotten into problems with our schools. Our schools have often said, your kid's not good at math or reading, so you know what, they're not as valuable. Now, obviously, they don't come out and say it that way, but listen, that's how kids feel if they come out and they look at a report card and measures basic academics.
Right. Academic is just one track.
Yeah, so as parents, we have to be very, very careful to say, listen, I am not going to let the school define the value that God created you to be.
Yeah.
And so that's why as parents, we have to start working very hard to direct our kids into discovering their gifts and what they contribute to others outside of themselves, to something that's bigger. Because when they start to see what they can contribute, wow.
And it might be that they are great with their hands, and they don't go to college. They go to a trade school, and they're the best mechanic in town. Or maybe they are an Olympic skier, like our friend Nick Gipper, who didn't go to college. He went and competed, internationally in a way that not many people can do. We've got to just realize that every child is unique, and every person has value, and we've got to help our kids to find out what that looks like, and to not demean them if they're not an A+ student. If they're not the valedictorian, that doesn't mean they don't have value.
Yeah, because once we start to get, and again, not falsely, this is not this is not saying you're just a great kid because I said you're a great kid. No, we have to authentically show them and guide them, because sometimes the discovery process takes longer. I mean, some of us go quite a while being undecided in what we're good at or want to do. But we have to continue that encouragement and to take the risk and to say, well, try this, try that, see what you're good at. The exposure is so important. But then continuing to allow them to find out, what is my gift and what can I give back with?
And hon, I will say this, because there's a lot of people in Eagle Country that are listening, and maybe you're listening as a podcast, and life has been tough for you. You have made some bad choices, or there's been bad circumstances, tough, difficult situations that have brought a lot of pain, a lot of heartache. And I believe with all my heart, and God confirms this in His Word, that there is nothing He cannot bring something beautiful out of. We read this earlier. There's so many different ways that God can bring beauty out of those ashes. And that's when I say, hey, having a faith in a God, something bigger than yourself, is what's going to bring you value. And it's what is going to redeem even the ugly parts that is in your story, or the most difficult, painful things in your past. God can do something beautiful from you. You and I, Hun, in our time working at Rock Solid Families now, we believe that God is using all of this that we've been through, our work and our school and our experiences, for just this season in our life to help others. And so God has a plan, and it's a great one. And there is not one thing He can't do something beautiful from. You know, James 1:17 says, whatever is good and perfect is a gift coming down to us from God. And He's the one that never changes. So He's the one that wants something beautiful for your life.
Yeah. So here's the gift. The gift to our children is not inflated compliments, not saturating them with trophies, not just making them feel like they are the center of the world. I mean, that is not a gift to them.
No.
Okay? You are. That is called sinking sand.
Yes.
You're setting them up for great failure and entitlement.
Yes.
So in other words, they don't get those sort of reassurances and compliments later in life, and their world starts to fall apart.
Yeah.
The greatest gift that we can be right now is to be authentic with them by directing them. You know, I see you're working hard out on the football field, but maybe football's not your sport, okay? And rather than saying you're the best football player that's ever played, and let's be honest, he wasn't, okay? And so,
are you speaking from experience?
Yeah, we've had a couple of those cases, but that's okay. That's okay, because there is greater growth in them discovering and getting further down the road to finding out who they really are and what their gifts really are.
Yep.
And as you said before, they may not even be from the school setting. The school setting may not bring that, but maybe it's the art class. You know, maybe it's some other interaction with other people in a club or something.
But hon, don't you think all of that is really irrelevant if you found your worth in Christ alone?
Yeah.
We talked about last week about our hope, and if we put our hope in stuff, it will never, ever satisfy. And so we're saying here the same thing with worth. If you put your worth in your gifts and talents and your accomplishments or your bank account, it will never, ever satisfy, and you will come away empty. And so if you don't have a faith background, if you don't have a relationship with God, I really encourage you, call us at Rock Solid Families, rocksolidfamilies.org. Contact us. We would love to sit down with you. If you have questions and doubts and you're just like confused about what all this is meaning, God has got a plan here for it.
Yeah.
And we believe that that's a start of really where your self-worth comes from.
You know, to boil this down, where you don't just, it's very difficult to just say, I have worth because I'm a child of God, if we don't practice being a child of God. And the number one thing that Christ asks us to do is to serve. He did not come to be served, but to serve. And so one of the things that you and I work with our kids early on is to teach them, we're not here to serve you, we're here to serve each other. Because that service is a foundation for discovering all of your other gifts and talents. And
it's very humbling too.
Yeah, and so as a parent, if we really want to teach our kids early on something that's extremely important that will build their foundation for self-worth, being worth something to others and to Christ, teach your children how to serve.
We did a whole show on that.
Yeah. So,
check back in the fall on our podcast.
All right, we are wrapping up and out of time. One thing is what we're trying to direct a little bit away from the narcissistic way of being and start looking outside of ourselves and discovering how we can help others. So parents, we want to encourage you to do that. We are ready to say goodbye for the night. We want to say thank you for the sponsorship and the help from Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. Thank you for all you do to keep us on the air. Make it a great night.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. For help or more information about what you've heard this evening, contact us at rocksolidfamilies.org or call us at 812-576-ROCK. That's 812-576-ROCK. Again, a huge thanks to our sponsors, Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. If you have questions you'd like answered on air, or you want to chime in on something you've heard this evening, go to our Facebook page, Rock Solid Families. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to tune in next Sunday evening at 7:30 for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, and for my husband Merrill and I, thanks for tuning in to your hometown radio, Eagle Country 99.3.